Good evening, and thank you to everybody in Braintree who made this technological accommodation possible. My dialogue with ZOM Living centered around the possibility of the synergies that may exist between their proposed multifamily project at the South Shore Plaza and the curiosity on the part of Braintree officials on the biotechnology market that has become so incredibly all encompassing in the greater Boston market recently. Um, my name is Brennan Carroll, and I'm delighted to offer a concise summary of some of these concepts. Uh, Today, I'll briefly describe Respoke, a company I formed in 2022. We'll talk a little bit about biosite selection, a little bit more generally. We'll discuss Braintree, the biotech opportunity in Braintree, and the desirability. And then I'll also leave you with some contact information for anybody who would want to get a hold of me. So, Respoke is a company I formed in 2022 following a 20-year career as a commercial real estate research analyst and economist. Most recently, I was the America's Director for Life Sciences Research at Cushman & Wakefield. The goal in forming Respoke was really to capitalize on what I viewed as a broad gap in understanding location value and commercial potential resulting from changes in commuting preferences. Um, Secondly, and more to the point here, it was also to create a next generation of a model I had developed that understands location efficacy in the context of the user base of the greater Boston biotechnology market, which tends to be incredibly selective. Um, so, a core pillar of Respoke is a history of thought leadership I've somewhat established in the areas of biotechnology site solution and predicting and helping make tangible many of the emerging clusters of biotechnology activity in the greater Boston market. So you'll see some quotes here, but really these go back to the formation of biotech clusters in Leechmere, Lexington, Somerville, Watertown, one that's occurring presently in Burlington, which I think is very interesting from the Braintree perspective, and a lot of other ones. So um, labware, we get into the labware model. Don't strain your eyes, but I think this kind of makes the point of the 30 plus variable geostatistical model. You can see the very first 25 lines or so of catalog geo points and their scores. And what we do here is this is a little bit of an easier summary of the labware model and how it's balanced. So let's work backwards from bottom right. Asset level considerations, this is such as, under construction assets are, suitable for almost any user, whereby something that's approved but not underway yet might get dinged by a group that feels that they really need to work quickly. There's lifestyle considerations, enjoyment, which mostly can be digitized by taking a feed, no pun intended, but of the number of food service establishments within easy walking distance. So this pulls coffee shops, lunch places, happy hour places, fine dining places. Expandability. So users in this market generally will have one requirement that is soon, but are almost always looking at a larger footprint. Even in this case, something that is approved but not under construction yet or not existing yet is totally fine to check this box. Some companies feel that they need to be in a part of a cluster. So East Cambridge is considered to be one of the world's largest and also most concentrated biotech clusters. This basically makes some companies feel that they're more in the mix. There's out-of-town access. So many biotechs are very intensive in terms of recruiting and global collaboration. So this almost always requires a reasonable access to the airport, as well as also, in many cases, the Northeast Corridor, which in the case of the South Shore Plaza location is accommodated by the Route 128 station. Now, we get into the red category here, the talent. That's really the driver. To be clear, this model is based on a weighted scoring of the below categories, though talent is a multiplier. So winning at all of the below categories but being a zero in talent is a zero. So running down the list, driving PhDs, this is a 30-minute inbound range with an 8:30 a.m. Tuesday morning arrival. That's just an average morning rush hour arrival. PhDs that can walk or bike to work within 20 minutes. Multifamily units, brand new, under construction, or proposed within that same 20-minute biking or walking range. This is very important to note that this has heavily to do with the fact that many newly graduating scientists do not want to have to own a car in their 20s. And many of them will come to this market and they view job opportunities that don't require a car. So to be competitive with those opportunities, many biotechs feel that it's important to be able to offer car-free living to those types of people. So rail accessibility, naturally a challenge at South Shore Plaza, the train out of reasonable walking range of most people. And then also there's the non-auto capable. So in other words, can you have a lifestyle, reasonable lifestyle that is car-free? And to note, the last two categories, most suburban areas, including the very successful ones, don't really score well in that category. So it's not a deal breaker in any way. This is just kind of interesting because this confirms that we have the model balanced pretty well. These are the largest, most notable Leaf signings in the 2020s. Labware scores, every single one is at a place with a Labware score of at least 50. This is just 10% of the market's inventory has a score that high. So, I think that the model is calibrated pretty well. So let's apply Labware to Braintree. So when taking the average Labware score of the municipality's lab locations, in the case of Braintree, this is the York factory at the South Shore Plaza, of course. Braintree is the 12th best municipality in Greater Boston for biotech. This is, besting Waltham, Lexington, Bedford, and there are some incredibly sellable points in the model for Braintree. First of all, 274,000 PhDs can arrive at 250 Granite Street during a normal rush hour. So that's that 8:30 arrival time. This is the highest such figure in the region. This is number one. And actually that was some points seem like they're going to go someplace that is surprising to me. Accessibility to Logan Airport during the daytime. I think that's an important asterisk. So this is non-rush hour access to out-of-town transportation terminals because I feel that you can kind of manage that sort of thing. You don't normally have to go a rush hour. So daytime travel to transportation terminals is incredibly good. The 130,000 square feet available at York Factory is competitive. Most biotech cluster suburbs can piece together 200,000 or more of availability cobbled between existing, under construction, and approved projects. So that's something that could be an issue for some biotechs, but I would say probably not most of them. Also, we are figuring 495 or 395 units naturally at Granite Woods, and that actually, even if we do consider that to be approved, that would still be relatively at the low range. So most places today, even in Waltham, Lexington, have some degree of walkable, bikeable, housing that is in a good new multifamily facility that would be attractive to recent graduates. Interestingly enough, Braintree's story is an interesting one. I think. I think it's also probably taken for granted. Braintree has very little biotech activity today. I think it's taken for granted that many of the primary clusters of biotech activity really were born in the relatively recent past, whether it's the Seaport in 2011, the Lechmere area, Sanofi's 901,000 square feet lease in December of 2018, something I played a role in, and Somerville. Somerville is recently named the number one startup and the number one biotechnology startup city in the United States, and really the very first establishing lease occurring in March of 2021. So I think that there's an interesting story here, and I think that there's also an interesting eighth point there, which is Dorchester, where a lot of very important investors in the real estate community see a big opportunity, and that naturally is geographically close, getting closer to where we see Braintree. So naturally, what do you want it? Most municipalities have come to the same conclusion. It brings in money, it brings in tax money, it brings in demand for retail, for products, affluent user base, affluent employee base. It's a new inventory offering for residents going into the future. For the most part, biotech is staffed largely by recently graduated scientists. So it's a nominal burden on municipal resources, including schools. And I think that's very important to note. Also, it checks all the boxes. It checks a lot of the boxes. And I think that as we look at the labware model, there's some workable areas, and it's already starts from a pretty compelling place. So I think it's also interesting that geographically, if we look at the way Braintree is laid out, the radial access, which kind of ends here at the Braintree split, this kind of creates a single location where it could be most compelling. Most first-rung suburb commercial success in Greater Boston is on that first radial, and very little of it is on the tangent. So I think that it's kind of interesting to take a look at how this could work very well in the immediate vicinity of the South Shore Plaza, and really on site, and really also just be something that can be just there to some degree. So, as a final thought, to me, biotechnology is the currently prominent subcategory of what I believe is the category that truly this region dominates, and that is emerging commercialized sciences. There have been so many ways of this in this region, but the area is dotted, with the commercialized sciences players in the region from the Cold War era and defense, which we have depicted on the screen, the mainframe era, which has mostly been supplanted by other technologies, and really around a half dozen other areas, which will inevitably give rise to a future one. So right now, doing the work for biotech, I think also is doing the work for setting the stage to attract the next commercialized scientific activity that Boston will dominate in the future. So just kind of an interesting thought to throw into the mix. Thanks again for the audience here. I'm going to fade off the screen, but we'll leave this closing screen up for a couple of minutes. Email me with any questions. You can also scan the QR code on the screen, which will email me. You can fill out the body, but it will already have a subject line referencing our meeting here. So thanks again, and have a good night.